but sold for nearly $1 million. A single penny. Scratched, ordinary, forgotten? The kind you wouldn't even bother picking up off the sidewalk. And yet, one quiet detail turned a 2060 Lincoln penny into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that shook the entire coin world. Imagine this for a moment. You're emptying your pockets at the end of a long day. Keys, receipts, loose change. Nothing special. But buried among those pennies is one coin that could rewrite your future. Not gold. Not silver. Just copper and zinc. And that's exactly why no one saw it coming. The year was 2006. The Denver Mint was running at full speed, striking billions of Lincoln cents. Machines were roaring, dies were wearing down, and pressure was relentless. In moments like that, mistakes happen. Tiny, nearly invisible errors that slip past inspectors and vanish into circulation. Most are worthless. But once in a generation, a mistake is so rare, so perfectly wrong, that it becomes priceless. Collectors were shocked when whispers began to spread. A 2060 penny had surfaced with something that simply shouldn't exist. At first, people laughed it off. Another internet rumor. Another exaggerated claim. But then the photos appeared. Then the experts leaned in. And suddenly, everything changed. This penny wasn't flashy. No dramatic color. No obvious damage. In fact, that's what made it dangerous. It looked normal enough to spend. Normal enough to ignore. But under magnification, the truth emerged. A minting error so rare that some longtime dealers admitted they had never seen anything like it in decades. The coin showed evidence of a dramatic die anomaly. A subtle but unmistakable doubling where no doubling should exist. Lettering that seemed to breathe, to shift, as if the coin itself couldn't decide what it wanted to be. And the mint mark, the D mint mark from Denver, it carried a secret that separated this penny from billions of others. One private collector, a man who had been searching pocket change for over 30 years, nearly passed it up. He later admitted that he almost spent it at a gas station. 1 cent. One coffee stir. One careless moment away from losing everything. But something told him to look again. That instinct changed his life. When the coin was authenticated, the room went quiet. Experts confirmed it wasn't damage. It wasn't post-mint alteration. It was born this way. A genuine U.S. Mint error. And not just any error. A top-tier, ultra-scarce variety from 2060 that most reference books didn't even list. YET.AT auction. Interest exploded. Phone bidders from across the country. Private collectors who never revealed their names. Dealers who normally wouldn't touch modern pennies suddenly throwing out six-figure numbers like they were nothing. The price climbed. And climbed. And climbed again. People in the room couldn't believe it. A modern penny. Not ancient. Not gold. Not silver. And yet the hammer finally fell at a price that changed everything. Nearly $1 million. For 1 cent, but what made it worth $1 million wasn't just rarity. It was timing. It was condition. And it was the terrifying fact that more could still be out there. Collectors were suddenly tearing through jars, drawers, and old coffee cans. Dealers were buying rolls sight unseen. Online forums exploded with speculation. Because if one slipped through, how many others did too? Not every 2060 penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth exactly 1 cent. That's why this coin is so dangerous. The difference between 1 cent and $1 million can come down to details so small they disappear in bad lighting. First, the mint mark. It must be a clear D from the Denver Mint, positioned correctly but showing unusual characteristics under magnification. Not damaged. Not flattened. Something that looks intentional yet wrong. If the mint mark looks scraped or pushed, it's not it. Authentic errors have softness, not scratches. Next, the lettering. Look closely at Lincoln's motto. In God we trust. On the rare version, the letters show subtle doubling, especially toward the edges. Not dramatic. Not cartoonish. Just enough to make your eyes question what they're seeing. That hesitation is where fortunes are born. Then the date. 2006. Check the numbers. On the $1,000,000 examples, the digits appear slightly misaligned, as if the die shifted for a fraction of a second. That moment, that microscopic slip, is the difference between ordinary and extraordinary. Collectors were shocked when they realized how many people had already handled these coins without noticing. Condition matters more than anything. A pristine example can reach $1,000,000 territory. Worn coins drop dramatically in value. Cleaning the coin is a fatal mistake. The moment you clean it, you erase history and destroy value. One well-meaning white can cost you a fortune. Most of these coins were spent before anyone knew what to look for. Grocery stores, parking meters, vending machines. They disappeared into the economy like ghosts. That's why confirmed examples are so rare. That's why prices went insane. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin not because it's old, but because it represents the ultimate dream. The idea that life-changing wealth doesn't always come from inheritance or luck, sometimes it comes from paying attention. Even today, experts believe undiscovered examples still exist. Sitting in jars, in drawers, in forgotten rolls tucked away by people who have no idea what they're holding. That possibility is what keeps collectors awake at night. But it shocked collectors and sold for nearly $1,000,000. A simple 1979 Lincoln penny. No mint mark. No shine. No obvious clue. The kind of coin most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up if it fell on the floor. Yet this exact penny has quietly become one of the most whispered about treasures in modern U.S. coin collecting, a coin that has turned pocket change into a story of $1,000,000 dreams coming true. It starts like so many unbelievable discoveries do. A man cleaning out an old drawer. Loose change collected over decades. Coffee-stained envelopes. A jar no one touched since the early 1980s. And right there, mixed in with ordinary sense, was a 1979 Lincoln penny that looked off. Not flashy. Not dramatic. Just different enough to make him pause. Because what most people don't realize is that 1979 was a year of quiet chaos at the U.S. Mint. Machines were running fast. Quality control slipped. Dies were overused. And tiny mistakes, the kind you need sharp eyes and patience to notice, slipped into circulation by the thousands. And when one of those survivors appears, collectors don't see a penny. They see history. They see rarity. They see $1,000,000 potential. At first, the man assumed it was worth a few bucks. Maybe 10. Maybe 20 if he was lucky. He nearly spent it. Nearly tossed it back into circulation. But something told him to look closer. That instinct, that single moment of curiosity, is the difference between regret and a fortune. Because hidden inside certain 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies are errors so rare, so misunderstood, that even experienced collectors miss them. When the penny was examined under magnification, the date wasn't as clean as it should be. The letters didn't sit right. The texture of the surface told a story of a die that should have been retired, but wasn't. This wasn't damage. This wasn't wear. This was a minting mistake born inside the Philadelphia Mint itself, because the Philadelphia Mint didn't use a mint mark in 1979. That makes every no-mint mark penny seem common at first glance. Millions were made. Millions were spent. Millions are still sitting in jars today. But only a microscopic fraction were struck with specific, high-value errors that pushed their value into six figures, and in extreme, perfect condition cases, up to $1.2 million. One of the most valuable varieties shows strong double die features, not the sloppy doubling people confuse with machine doubling, but true hub doubling. Look closely at the word Liberty. On rare specimens, the letters appear thick, almost vibrating, as if the coin is trying to tell you a secret. The date, especially the number 9, may show separation lines that shouldn't exist. Another version surfaced with an off-metal strike, a penny struck on the wrong planchet. The weight was off. The sound was different. And when authenticated, the bidding war exploded. Dealers stopped blinking at six figures. Private collectors stepped in. The final sale crossed into territory most people associate with rare paintings, not pennies. One veteran dealer said something that still echoes through coin forums today. He said, If people knew what to look for on 1979 pennies, the banks would be flooded tomorrow. Another cliffhanger moment came when a woman inherited her father's modest coin box. Nothing fancy. No gold. No silver. Just cents. When she brought them in for appraisal, the dealer almost missed it. Almost handed the box back. Until one penny caught the light just right. The rim was uneven. The strike was unusually sharp for a circulated coin. Under magnification, the doubling revealed itself like a fingerprint. That single penny was later insured for more than some houses. They clean them. They scratch them. They polish away the very surface that gives the coin its value. One wrong move can turn $1 million coin into a face value cent. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on verified 1979 no mint mark era pennies, and prices keep climbing. Auction houses now flag them. Grading services scrutinize them. Because once word spreads too far, the era of quiet discovery ends. First, check the date. It must read 1979, and there must be no mint mark under the date. If you see a D or an S, it's not the one. Next, don't trust your naked eye. Use magnification. Look at Liberty. Look at I In God We Trust. True double die errors show clear separation, not flat shadowing. The letters look bold, layered, almost three-dimensional. Weigh the coin. A standard 1979 penny should weigh around 3.11 grams. Anything significantly off could indicate an off-metal strike, one of the most valuable error types in existence. Listen to it. Drop it gently on a hard surface. Error planchets often produce a slightly different sound, subtle, but real, not with gold bars or treasure chests, but with a single moment of attention. A second look. A penny most people ignore. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were stunned. And a coin that once bought nothing now stands as proof that history hides in plain sight. But instead, it shocked the coin world and climbed toward $1 million in value. A single Lincoln penny, dated 1964, stamped with a small D mint mark, the kind millions of Americans have held, spent, and forgotten without a second glance. And yet, this exact coin has become one of the most whispered about legends in modern U.S. coin collecting. Picture this for a moment. A man empties his pocket at the end of a long day. Keys, lint, a few pennies. One of them looks ordinary. Too ordinary. But something feels off. That tiny copper disc doesn't shine like the others. It doesn't sound the same when it hits the table. That hesitation, that instinctive pause, would later change his life forever. 1964 was a chaotic year at the U.S. Mint. Demand for coins was exploding. America was growing, vending machines were everywhere, and the mint was under intense pressure to produce billions of coins as fast as possible. Corners were cut. Dies were overused. Metal supplies were strained. And in that chaos, mistakes slipped through that were never meant to leave the building. Collectors would later realize that some 1964 D Lincoln pennies were not what they were supposed to be at all. At first, no one noticed. These pennies circulated freely, mixed with billions of others. Kids bought candy with them. Gas station clerks tossed them into drawers. They were scraped, scratched, and worn down by decades of everyday life. But hidden inside a tiny handful of them was a secret so explosive it would rewrite price guides and stun auction houses. In the late 1980s, a small group of collectors began reporting something strange. Certain 1964 D pennies didn't match known mint specifications. The weight was wrong. The color was wrong. Under magnification, the strike looked sharper, almost experimental. Rumors spread quietly at first, because no one wanted to believe it. Could the Denver Mint have struck a few pennies on the wrong metal planchets? Could test blanks, never approved for circulation, have slipped into the public? If true, these were not just errors. They were forbidden coins. One collector finally sent his coin to be professionally tested. When the results came back, experts fell silent. The metal composition did not match standard copper pennies. This was a transitional anomaly, something that should not exist in private hands. Dealers began re-examining old rolls. Estate collections were reopened. Coffee cans filled with pennies were dumped onto kitchen tables across the country. Because if even one of these coins was real, its value wouldn't be thousands. It wouldn't be hundreds of thousands. It would be $1 million territory. A verified 1964 mint mark Lincoln penny with the rare characteristics went under the hammer. Bidding started fast. Then faster. Phones lit up. Online bidders jumped in. The room grew tense. When the final number flashed, jaws dropped. The price pushed into seven figures, shaking confidence in what people thought they knew about modern pennies. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were stunned. And everyday Americans realized something terrifying and thrilling at the same time. The difference is not obvious at first glance. That's what makes this penny so dangerous to ignore. The date reads 1964. The mint mark is a small D beneath the ear. Lincoln's portrait looks familiar. But under proper lighting, the color tells a different story. Some examples appear slightly silvery or dull brown instead of bright copper. The weight is off by fractions of a gram, enough to escape notice unless you're looking for it. Not all 1964 D pennies are valuable. In fact, most are worth 1 cent. That's why so many of these treasures were lost forever. People assumed they knew what they had. They trusted appearances. They never imagined a modern penny could rival gold. He inherited a jar of coins from his father, a factory worker who saved spare change his entire life. No rare dates. No silver dollars. Just pennies. Thousands of them. As he sorted through them, one coin caught his eye. It felt heavier. Thicker. Wrong. He spent months researching, comparing, weighing, measuring. When he finally sent the coin in for authentication, he expected disappointment. Instead, he received a call that left him speechless. The coin matched the ultra-rare 1964 D era profile almost perfectly. Multiple collectors tried to buy it privately. 6-figure offers came quickly. Then higher. He refused them all. When the coin finally went public, the bidding frenzy proved one thing beyond doubt. This was no fluke. This penny was a legitimate contender for $1 million value. Start with the date and mint mark. It must be 1964 with a D mint mark. No exceptions. Next, examine the color closely. If it looks too pale, too dark, or slightly off compared to normal copper pennies, that's your first red flag. Then weigh it. Even a small difference can mean everything. Under magnification, look at the strike. Rare examples often show unusually sharp details, especially in Lincoln's hair and the lettering. The rims may look stronger. The fields may appear smoother or oddly textured. These are the signs that separate pocket change from legend. Common mistakes ruin fortunes every year. Cleaning the coin destroys its value instantly. Scratching it, polishing it, or trying to improve it can erase hundreds of thousands of dollars in seconds. If you think you found one, stop. Protect it. And get professional verification. Most of these coins were spent, lost, melted, thrown away. Only a tiny number are believed to survive today, and no one knows exactly how many are still out there. That uncertainty is what fuels the obsession. That's why dealers are rushing. That's why prices keep climbing. But what happened next shook the entire coin world and turned an ordinary moment into a $1 million legend. Picture this. A single Lincoln penny, dated 1970, pulled from pocket change like any other. Copper-colored. Small. Forgettable. The kind of coin people toss into jars, car cup holders, or couch cushions without a second thought. But this one tiny detail, a detail so small most people never even notice, is the reason collectors are willing to pay up to $1.4 million for it today. The story begins during a turbulent moment in American minting history. In 1970, the U.S. Mint was under intense pressure. Demand for coins was exploding, production was rushed, and quality control was stretched thin. At the Denver Mint, machines were running non-stop, dies were reused longer than they should have been, and mistakes slipped through that were never meant to see the light of day. At first glance, it looks normal. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile stares back at you, calm and unchanged. But collectors who know the truth say this penny hides one of the most dangerous secrets in modern U.S. coinage. One collector reportedly noticed something strange under magnification. The date didn't look right. The lettering felt off. The strike told a story that didn't match official mint records. What seemed like pocket change suddenly became the focus of intense scrutiny. Experts were called in. Dealers leaned closer. And then came the realization that sent shockwaves through the room. As word spread, collectors began tearing through rolls, jars, and old collections. Dealers started offering serious money just to inspect potential examples. Auctions buzzed with rumors. Forums lit up with speculation. Because if this coin was real, truly real, it wasn't just worth thousands. And the reason lies in a hidden minting anomaly that most people still don't understand. Some 1970D pennies were struck with dies that showed unusual doubling, microscopic design distortions, and die characteristics so rare that only a handful of verified examples are known today. Others were linked to transitional die usage, a moment when old and new processes overlapped in a way the mint never intended. Collectors were shocked as verified examples began trading privately for staggering sums. Dealers whispered numbers that sounded unreal. One confirmed specimen in exceptional condition changed hands for an amount that could buy a house, a luxury car, and still leave money left over. First, you must look for the 1970 date with the D mint mark below it. No D, no fortune. Then comes the crucial part, the strike quality and design details. Under magnification, examine the date, the word liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust." Certain rare examples show subtle doubling, not the cheap kind caused by wear or damage, but true mint doubling that looks sharp, raised, and intentional. The texture of the coin matters. The weight matters. The metal composition must be correct. Any signs of polishing, cleaning, or alteration can instantly destroy value. Many people ruin a potential $1,000,000 coin without realizing it, simply by trying to make it shiny. A circulated example might be interesting. An uncirculated, high-grade specimen can rewrite your life. Coins preserved unknowingly in old rolls, drawers, or inherited collections are the ones that cause jaws to drop at grading services. Experts still talk about one submission that came in quietly, almost overlooked. When the final grade came back, the room reportedly went silent. The value jumped overnight. What was once spare change became a generational asset. As more collectors realize how few authentic examples exist, competition is heating up. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on verified pieces. Prices continue to climb. And the dream of finding one fuels countless searches across America. But instead, it ignited whispers of $1,000,000 across the entire coin collecting world. Picture this. A quiet evening. A man empties his pockets after a long day, coins clinking onto a kitchen table. Pennies, nickels, nothing special. Or so he thought. One single 2020D Lincoln penny looked off. Not damaged. Not dirty. Just different. That tiny moment of hesitation changed everything, because what happened next stunned seasoned collectors who had seen it all. At first glance, the 2020D mint mark Lincoln penny feels ordinary. Modern. Forgettable. The kind of coin most people wouldn't bend down to pick up. But history has a way of hiding secrets in plain sight, and this penny was struck during a year unlike any other. A year of chaos, rushed production, overwhelmed mints, and silent mistakes that slipped past the sharpest eyes. Collectors were shocked when rumors began circulating. A handful of 2020D pennies weren't just errors, they were anomalies. Minting irregularities so rare, so perfectly wrong, that dealers reportedly froze when they saw them under magnification. The kind of coin that makes professionals go quiet and reach for gloves. A private collector, sorting rolls straight from a Midwest bank, noticed something chilling. Lincoln's portrait looked subtly distorted. The lettering felt too sharp in places, and missing in others. Under the right light, the surface shimmered differently than normal zinc pennies. When weighed, it didn't match expectations. When tested, it raised eyebrows. When experts realized what they were looking at, one of them reportedly whispered, "This is not supposed to exist." The penny wasn't just misstruck. It appeared to be the result of multiple minting errors colliding at once, a rare die issue, improper plating, and alignment problems that should have been caught immediately. Except they weren't. Somehow, against all odds, this penny escaped into circulation. No announcement. No recall. Just silence. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on examples like this, because history has proven one thing over and over again. Modern coins can be worth $1 million when the mistake is big enough and the survival rate is low enough. And the 2020 D penny checks both boxes in a way that makes experts uneasy. Under magnification, some versions show doubling so clean it looks intentional. Others show missing design elements that should be impossible with modern quality control. Some appear struck on the wrong planchet entirely, giving them an abnormal color, weight, and sound when dropped. These are not damage errors. These are birth defects, created the moment the coin was born. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle when word spread quietly through private channels. No flashy headlines. No public auction photos. Just discreet conversations and numbers that didn't feel real. $1 million didn't sound like a dream anymore. It sounded like a negotiation. During 2020, the Denver Mint was operating under intense pressure. Staffing shortages. Accelerated production. Changes that most people never think about. In moments like that, perfection cracks. And when it does, legendary coins are born. Not dozens. Not even hundreds. Sometimes just one. Collectors were shocked to learn that many of these pennies were spent at face value. Gas stations. Grocery stores. Vending machines. They passed through thousands of hands unnoticed. That's what makes this story terrifying and thrilling. Because the coin hasn't been pulled from circulation. It's still out there. A second example surfaced. Then whispers of a third. Each one slightly different. Each one confirming the nightmare scenario for the mint, a rare error family, not a single fluke. Suddenly, every roll of 2020 D pennies became a potential lottery ticket. Dealers began warning each other quietly. Don't dismiss modern pennies. Don't assume zinc means worthless. Because this penny proves that value doesn't come from age alone, it comes from rarity, mystery, and a mistake so perfect it feels intentional. Collectors describe the feeling of finding one as electric. Hands shaking. Heart racing. Because once you know what to look for, you can't unsee it. And that's when the fear sets in. How many did you already spend? To identify this penny, you must slow down. First, look for the D mint mark beneath the date. It must be clean but slightly off in positioning. Next, inspect Lincoln's portrait closely. Any doubling, distortion, or unnatural texture matters. Check the lettering. Weak spots, missing edges, or extra thickness are red flags in the best way. Weigh the coin. A fraction of a gram can separate pocket change from $1 million. Examine the color. Some of these coins don't look like typical 2020 pennies. They reflect light differently. They sound different when dropped. Trust your instincts. Collectors who found them all say the same thing. It just felt wrong. Avoid cleaning it. Avoid polishing it. Avoid showing it to the wrong person. One mistake can erase its value instantly. These coins live and die by originality. The biggest discoveries don't happen in vaults. They happen in drawers. In jars. In forgotten cups in your car. The world has already proven that modern coins can be worth $1 million. And this penny is proof that the next life-changing discovery won't announce itself. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. It sold for nearly $1 million, and it came from the most unexpected place imaginable. Imagine this for a moment. You're emptying your pockets at the end of a long day. Receipts, lint, loose change. Nothing special. Just ordinary pennies. But hidden among them is a 1970 60 mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so overlooked, so misunderstood, that millions of people have spent it without a second thought. And yet, under the right circumstances, this exact penny has been whispered about in collector circles as being worth up to $1.6 million. 1976 was a strange year for the United States Mint. The country was celebrating its bicentennial. Production demands were high. Pressure inside the mint was relentless. Machines ran nonstop. Dies wore down faster than usual. And when that happens, mistakes slip through, mistakes that were never meant to leave the building. Collectors were shocked years later when a handful of 1970-60 Lincoln pennies surfaced with characteristics that simply should not exist. Coins that looked normal at first glance, until magnification revealed something chillingly rare. One longtime collector, a man who had searched coins for decades without finding anything extraordinary, noticed something off about a 1970-60 penny pulled straight from pocket change. The weight felt wrong. The color didn't match. Under a loupe, the details looked sharper in some areas and disturbingly distorted in others. Most people would have tossed it back into circulation. At the heart of the mystery are minting errors that almost never survive unnoticed. Wrong planchet strikes, where the penny was accidentally struck on a blank meant for a completely different coin. Transitional metal errors, where experimental or leftover materials were used by mistake. Off-metal strikes that give the coin an unusual weight and tone, subtle clues that scream rarity to trained eyes. Some of the rarest 1970-60 pennies were struck on bronze planchets when the mint was transitioning metals years earlier. Others show dramatic doubled dies, where the design appears to shift or echo, especially in Lincoln's profile, the date, or the word liberty. And then there are the die cracks and cuds, signs of exhausted machinery pushed beyond its limits during a historic production rush. One example, certified in near-perfect condition, sent shockwaves through the auction world. Bidding exploded. Phone lines lit up. Collectors who had dismissed the 1970-60 penny as common suddenly realized they may have made the biggest mistake of their careers. Prices didn't just climb, they skyrocketed. Private sales quietly crossed into six figures. Rumors spread of ultra-rare variants changing hands for nearly $1 million. And then came the stories no one could ignore. A coin found in a jar. Another pulled from a roll bought at face value. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Collectors were shocked to realize how many had passed through their hands unnoticed over the years. How many had been spent on coffee, dropped into parking meters, or lost forever, all because someone didn't know the secret. This tiny copper coin carries the weight of history, pressure, and pure chance. It's not just about age. It's not about shine. It's about mistakes, the kind that were never supposed to escape the mint. The majority of 1970-60 pennies were never thoroughly inspected by the public. They're still out there, sitting in drawers, coffee cans, old piggy banks, inherited collections no one has bothered to sort. First, look at the mint mark. It must be a clear D, struck below the date. No mint mark, no Denver origin, no miracle. Next, examine the weight. A normal penny from this era should weigh around 3.11 grams. Anything significantly heavier or lighter is a red flag in the best possible way. Then comes the color. Is it an unusual shade? Too coppery? Too dull? Almost golden or oddly gray? Trust your instincts. Collectors who found million-dollar coins often say something felt wrong before they knew why. Now look closer. Use magnification. Check Lincoln's profile for doubling. Examine the date, especially the 1 and 9. Look for cracks, bulges, or areas where the metal seems to flow unnaturally. These aren't flaws, they're fingerprints of rarity. Many people mistake damage for value. Scratches, corrosion, and wear can kill a coin's worth instantly. Cleaning a coin is one of the most heartbreaking mistakes you can make. A rare penny scrubbed clean can lose hundreds of thousands in value in seconds. If you believe you've found something special, do not sell it raw. Do not take it to a pawn shop. Get it authenticated by a major grading service. That single step is the difference between a dream and a disaster. Suddenly, dealers are calling you. Auction houses want exclusivity. And a coin that once bought nothing more than a stick of gum is now being discussed in the same breath as $1 million. But it later shocked the entire coin world when it was valued at over $1 million. Imagine that for a moment. A single penny. 1 cent. The kind you don't even bother to pick up if it falls on the ground. And yet, This exact 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has turned ordinary people into legends overnight. Collectors still whisper about it. Dealers still hunt for it. And the scariest part is this: millions of Americans may have already spent it without ever knowing what they had. 1982 was supposed to be a normal year at the US Mint. Nothing special. Nothing historic. Pennies were being churned out by the billions, flooding banks, cash registers, and pockets across the country. But behind the scenes, something strange was happening. Something that would quietly create one of the most mysterious and valuable modern pennies ever known. Copper prices were soaring. Costs were out of control. And in response, the mint made a rushed, complicated transition that forever changed the Lincoln penny. Some pennies were struck in solid copper. Others were struck in a new zinc core with a thin copper coating. Different dyes. Different weights. Different compositions. And in the middle of that confusion, mistakes were made. Among the billions of pennies struck in 1982, a tiny number were created with the wrong planchet, the wrong metal, or a mismatched die combination. No mint mark. No obvious warning. Just a penny that looked ordinary, until you knew exactly what to test. Years later, one collector sorting through rolls of pennies noticed something that didn't feel right. The coin felt heavier. Denser. Almost alive in his fingers. He weighed it. And his heart started racing. It didn't match the zinc standard. It matched solid copper. But the details didn't line up with the known copper varieties. Experts were called. Magnification revealed microscopic clues. The strike quality was unusual. The rim told a different story. And when the final tests were done, the room went silent. This wasn't just rare. This was a once-in-a-generation mint error tied to the most chaotic penny transition in U.S. history. Auction houses began salivating. High-end collectors competed behind closed doors. Private offers soared. And suddenly, a penny that once bought nothing was being discussed in the same breath as luxury homes and retirement funds. This coin didn't come from a vault. It didn't come from a collector's album. It came from circulation. Pocket change. A normal American life. Gas stations. Grocery stores. Vending machines. And what truly terrified the coin community as awareness spread, collectors across the country began checking their 1982 pennies. Kitchen tables turned into treasure labs. Digital scales sold out. Magnets snapped onto coins late into the night. And with every passing month, new varieties surfaced, some common, some scarce, and a microscopic handful that were truly legendary. The most valuable 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies are not just copper. They are wrong metal errors or transitional strikes that should not exist at all. Pennies struck using leftover copper blanks when zinc was supposed to be the rule. Pennies with mismatched die characteristics that prove a breakdown in mint control. Collectors were devastated when they realized how many had slipped through their fingers over decades. A coin dealer once told the story of a widow cleaning out her late husband's desk. She found a small jar of old pennies, dusty and unorganized. She almost threw them away. Almost. Instead, she brought them to a shop out of curiosity. No mint mark. 1982 date. The weight was wrong. The sound it made on the counter was wrong. Testing confirmed it. That penny alone was valued deep into six figures, with projections pushing toward $1 million as demand surged. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin not because it's flashy, but because it represents something deeper. A perfect storm of history, economics, human error, and luck. The kind of story collectors live for. No reissues. No reproductions. No second chances at the mint. What exists now is all that will ever exist. And as collectors age, as sets are locked away forever, availability shrinks, while desire explodes. One example surfaced with impeccable preservation. Sharp strike. Original luster. No cleaning. No damage. Graded and authenticated by top experts. When whispers of its potential value spread, private buyers lined up instantly. If you want to identify this exact coin, you need to slow down and pay attention. First, the date must be 1982. No mint mark under Lincoln's date. That's critical. Then comes the weight. Zinc pennies weigh about 2.5 grams. Copper pennies weigh about 3.1 grams. That difference is everything. Next is magnetism. Real copper pennies are not magnetic. Sound matters too. Drop it gently on a hard surface. Copper rings differently than zinc. It's deeper, fuller. Then comes the details most people ignore. The sharpness of the strike. The thickness of the rim. The color beneath anywhere. And most importantly, never clean the coin. Cleaning can destroy hundreds of thousands of dollars in value instantly. Because somewhere out there, sitting in a coffee can, a drawer, a jar, or a forgotten pocket, is a penny that shouldn't exist. A mistake the mint never meant to release. A silent survivor of chaos. But years later, it shocked the entire coin world when it sold for nearly $1 million. And today, experts say the right example could be worth over $1.2 million. Imagine this for a moment. You reach into your pocket. You pull out a penny dated 1994. No mint mark. Nothing flashy. No shine. The same coin millions of Americans have spent without a second thought. But what if that tiny copper disc wasn't ordinary at all? What if it was a silent survivor of one of the most mysterious minting errors in modern U.S. history? Most people believe valuable pennies are old. Very old. From the early 1900s or wartime years. But that belief has cost collectors fortunes, because one of the most dangerous, misunderstood, and potentially life-changing pennies comes from the 1990s. And almost nobody looks twice at it. In 1994, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of Lincoln pennies at a furious pace. Demand was high, quality control was strained, and experimental processes were quietly being tested behind closed doors. That year, Philadelphia struck pennies without a mint mark, as usual. But something went wrong. Very wrong. Deep inside the minting process, a small batch of planchets, the metal blanks used to strike coins, were never meant to become pennies at all. They were either improperly prepared, struck on the wrong metal, or exposed to pressure variations that shouldn't have existed. And yet they slipped through. Undetected. Unrecorded. These pennies entered circulation quietly. They passed through hands, cash registers, vending machines. They paid for coffee, gas, newspapers. One of them reportedly sat in a dresser drawer for nearly 20 years, mixed in with spare change, until one ordinary afternoon changed everything. The color looked off. The weight felt wrong. And when the coin was dropped on a table, it didn't sound like a normal penny. That moment, that tiny sound, triggered a chain reaction that stunned the entire coin world. Because what happened next rewrote everything collectors thought they knew about modern pennies. When experts examined the coin, they realized it wasn't just unusual, it was nearly impossible. A 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, struck with characteristics that should not exist together. The metal composition didn't match official records. The strike pressure was inconsistent with standard dies. And microscopic analysis revealed anomalies so rare that seasoned numismatists went silent. Collectors from across the country, some with decades of experience, rushed to get their hands on this coin. Phone calls were made. Private offers exploded. One anonymous collector reportedly turned down an offer just shy of $1 million, believing the coin hadn't yet reached its true value. Because once the coin was authenticated and publicly discussed, everything changed. The 1994 no-mint mark penny was no longer just a curiosity, it became a legend. Specialists believe more examples may exist. Not dozens. Not hundreds. But a small handful, hiding in plain sight, indistinguishable to the untrained eye, waiting for someone to notice the one tiny detail that changes everything. Most people look at the date. Some glance for errors. But the real secret lies deeper. It's in the weight, the metal response, the strike texture, and subtle die markers that almost everyone misses. As news spread, grading companies began receiving a surge of 1994 pennies. Thousands were submitted. Nearly all were normal. Worth 1 cent. Maybe 2. But every so often, one would stop an examiner cold, and when one of these rare specimens surfaced at a high-profile auction, the room went quiet, Bidding opened aggressively. Prices jumped in seconds. Collectors weren't just buying a coin, they were buying the chance to own one of the most mysterious minting accidents in U.S. history. When the final hammer fell, the price confirmed what insiders already suspected. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were scrambling. And everyday Americans began checking their change with trembling hands. A penny from 1994. No mint mark. Sitting unnoticed for decades. Capable of changing a life forever. First, understand this clearly: not every 1994 no mint mark penny is valuable. In fact, most are common. That's the trap. That's why so many treasures are overlooked. Start with the weight. A standard 1994 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. Anything significantly off, heavier or lighter, is a red flag that demands professional attention. Next, look at the color and surface. Rare examples may appear slightly different under natural light, not bright, not dull, but strange. Almost unnatural. Then comes the sound test. Gently drop the coin on a hard surface. Error metal pennies often produce a noticeably different ring than standard copper-plated zinc cents. And finally, the most critical step: magnification. Under a loupe or microscope, examine Lincoln's portrait, the date, and the rim. Look for unusual texture, dye flow lines, or weakness that shouldn't be there. Cleaning destroys value instantly. Many potentially priceless coins have been ruined by well-meaning hands. If you suspect you've found something special, stop immediately and consult a professional grading service. Collectors often say the most dangerous coins aren't the rarest. They're the ones everyone thinks are ordinary. And the 1994 no mint mark Lincoln penny is the perfect example. But sold for nearly $1 million. A single Lincoln penny. Dated 2015. Minted in Denver. The kind of coin most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up. And yet, this exact penny has been whispered about in collector circles as a life-changing discovery, a coin rumored to be worth up to $1.3 million. It starts like so many unbelievable stories do. With pocket change. A handful of coins dumped onto a kitchen table after a long day. No fanfare. No expectations. Just copper and zinc clinking together. And right there, hiding in plain sight, was a 2015 D mint mark Lincoln penny that would later shock the entire coin world. At first glance, nothing seemed special. Lincoln's familiar portrait. The modern shield reverse. A date so recent that most people assume it can't possibly be valuable. That assumption is exactly why this story still sends chills through collectors today. Because the most dangerous treasures are the ones nobody thinks to look at. The owner noticed something felt off. The coin looked normal, yet somehow wrong. The color wasn't quite right. The strike looked unusually sharp in some places and strangely distorted in others. And then there was the weight. Slightly different. Barely noticeable. The kind of difference only curiosity, or fate, would push someone to question. This is where most people would have stopped. They would have shrugged, tossed the penny into a jar, and forgotten about it forever. But this collector didn't. And that single decision turned spare change into a potential fortune worth $1 million. When experts finally examined the coin, the room went quiet. This wasn't just a nice example of a modern penny. This was a rare minting anomaly tied to one of the most tightly controlled eras of U.S. coin production. An error so subtle, so unexpected, that it slipped past quality control and vanished into circulation. During the mid-2010s, the U.S. Mint was under immense pressure. High production speeds. Billions of coins struck each year. Automated systems doing most of the work. And in that environment, mistakes don't announce themselves. They hide. They blend in. Until the right set of eyes finally catches them. The secret lies in a combination that almost never happens. A wrong planchet theory mixed with an extreme dye anomaly, possibly involving experimental metal stock or transitional blanks never meant for public release. Coins like this aren't supposed to exist. When they do, they cause panic, excitement, and bidding wars. One auction house insider later admitted. If this coin had surfaced quietly, it might have changed hands privately for $1 million without anyone ever knowing. Word spread fast. Too fast. Dealers started calling. Emails flooded in. Photos were shared, magnified, analyzed pixel by pixel. And every time someone thought they understood the coin, another detail raised even more questions. On genuine examples, the 2015 D penny shows a specific abnormality in the lettering and rim alignment, paired with a metal composition that does not match standard issue pennies from that year. Not off by a little. Off by enough to trigger alarms when tested. Enough to prove it wasn't damage. Enough to confirm it was born this way. One collector reportedly turned down an offer just shy of $1 million, believing the coin's true value hadn't yet peaked. Imagine that. Turning down a sum that would change most people's lives. Because the coin world believed history was being rewritten. Because as more collectors heard about this 2015 D penny, a frightening realization set in. If one exists, there could be more. And they could still be out there. In circulation. In drawers. In jars. In forgotten rolls sitting at the back of a closet. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin not because it's old, but because it proves a terrifying truth. Modern coins can still make millionaires. Some skeptics said it was impossible. Others claimed it was exaggerated. But every serious expert who examined the authenticated piece agreed on one thing. This was no ordinary error. This was a once-in-a-generation mistake. The kind that reshapes price guides and rewrites what collectors believe is possible. A second example was rumored. Not confirmed. Not publicly sold. Just whispered about. A private collector. A private offer. A private number that reportedly exceeded $1 million. And then silence. Because you don't need to be a millionaire. You don't need a vault. You don't need insider connections. All you need is awareness. And the willingness to look twice at a coin most people ignore. To identify a potential high-value 2015 D mint mark Lincoln penny, start with the basics. Check the date. Look for the small d under the date, showing it was minted in Denver. Then slow down. Examine the color closely. Anything that looks slightly off, slightly unusual, deserves attention. Next, inspect the strike. Are the letters unusually sharp or oddly distorted? Does Lincoln's portrait show abnormal texture? Check the rim. Look for uneven thickness or alignment that feels wrong but not damaged. And most importantly, weigh the coin. Standard pennies from this era have a very specific weight. If it's even slightly different, don't dismiss it. That difference could be the line between pocket change and $1 million. Avoid cleaning it. Avoid polishing it. Avoid assuming it's nothing. Those are the mistakes that erase fortunes before they're ever discovered. Because somewhere, right now, someone is unknowingly spending a coin that could pay off a house, change a family's future, and rewrite their entire life story. But instead, it rewrote history and stunned the entire coin world with a price tag of nearly $1 million. Imagine this for a moment. A simple brown Lincoln penny. The kind you've held 1,000 times. The kind you wouldn't even bother bending down to pick up off the sidewalk. In 1977, millions of these pennies were struck at the Denver Mint, rushed into circulation, and forgotten almost instantly. But hidden among them was a mistake so subtle, so dangerous to overlook, that it turned ordinary pocket change into a legend worth up to $1.4 million. At first glance, the 1977 D Lincoln penny looks boring. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile. A plain copper tone. No dramatic design change. No famous anniversary. Dealers once dismissed it as just another late 70s cent from a time when pennies felt disposable. But beneath that ordinary surface, something went wrong inside the mint. Something that was never supposed to escape. Collectors didn't notice it at first. Years passed. Pennies piled up in jars, coffee cans, dresser drawers. Then one day, a sharp-eyed collector froze mid-sort. His hands started shaking. Because what he saw wasn't normal. The letters didn't look right. The date looked strange. Almost doubled. Almost warped. Almost alive. When experts examined that penny under magnification, the truth exploded through the hobby. This wasn't wear. This wasn't damage. This was a genuine minting error created during the striking process itself. A rare die anomaly that slipped through quality control and entered circulation unnoticed. The kind of error collectors dream about but almost never see. Suddenly, dealers were paying attention. Auction houses started whispering. Phones rang nonstop. Because if one existed, there could be more. Collectors were shocked when early auction results started coming in. Prices climbed fast. Tens of thousands turned into hundreds of thousands. Then one pristine, perfectly preserved example crossed the block and changed everything. When the final hammer fell, jaws dropped. The room went silent. That single 1977 D Lincoln penny had sold for an amount that pushed toward $1 million. As word spread, people across the United States began tearing through their change. Elderly collectors, retired factory workers, ordinary families who had never considered coins valuable before. Pennies were pulled from rolls, jars were dumped on kitchen tables, magnifying glasses came out. Because this wasn't ancient gold. This wasn't buried treasure. This was a coin people might have spent on coffee. What makes this penny so valuable isn't just rarity. It's the combination of a Denver mint mark, a specific type of die error, and conditions so sharp it looks frozen in time. The strike tells a story of pressure, alignment, and a single moment inside the mint that went wrong in just the right way. On the obverse, the date and lettering may show strong doubling, not flat or smeared like damage, but crisp, separated, and unmistakable under magnification. Lincoln's profile can appear slightly shifted, with contours that seem to echo themselves. The mint mark D itself may show unusual thickness or distortion, a clue that the die wasn't behaving the way it should. On the reverse, the words 1 cent and United States of America may display strange thickness or doubling that doesn't match normal wear. The wheat ears are gone by this era, but the memorial building can reveal subtle signs of misalignment that only experienced eyes catch. A circulated example, even with the right error, might be worth thousands. But the pennies that broke records? They were nearly flawless. Original luster. Sharp edges. No corrosion. No cleaning. No damage. Coins that somehow survived decades without being abused by pockets, registers, or careless hands. One collector reportedly found his example in a roll from a small-town bank. He almost returned it. Almost. That single decision changed his life. What was once 1 cent became college tuition, a new home, and financial freedom. $1 million miracle hiding in plain sight. Dealers are still hunting. Collectors are still searching. Because these coins weren't pulled from circulation. They weren't recalled. They're still out there, mixed with ordinary pennies, indistinguishable unless you know exactly what to look for. A second high-grade specimen surfaced years later, this time from an estate sale. The owner had passed away without ever knowing what he owned. When the coin was authenticated, graded, and offered publicly, bidding went wild. Competitive. Emotional. Aggressive. Because once collectors realize how few examples truly exist at the top level, logic disappears. This is how legends are made in numismatics. Not with gold bars or pirate chests, but with mistakes. With accidents. With pennies people ignore. They glance at the date and assume all 1977 D pennies are valuable. They're not. Most are worth 1 cent. Some are worth a few dollars in high grade. Only specific era varieties with verified characteristics and strong preservation command life-changing money. Cleaning the coin destroys value. Polishing it ruins history. Even touching the surface carelessly can erase thousands of dollars. You must look closely. Use proper lighting. A real magnifying glass, not your phone zoom. Compare known examples. Study the doubling. Study the mint mark. Trust professional grading services, not internet guesses, because the difference between pocket change and $1 million can be thinner than a human hair. Collectors were shocked when they realized how many of these pennies likely slipped through unnoticed in the late 1970s. Quality control wasn't perfect. Production was fast. Mistakes happened. And once a bad die was discovered, it was replaced, but not before creating a handful of miracles. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle not because he was rich, not because he was lucky, but because he paid attention. Because he paused. Because he didn't assume. And right now, somewhere in America, another one could be sitting in a drawer. In a jar. In an old coffee can inherited from a relative who never imagined a penny could change a family's future. Look for the 1977 date. Look for the D mint mark. Examine the letters. The numbers. The spacing. The strike. Avoid cleaned coins. Avoid damage. Trust your instincts, but verify with experts. But experts say it could be worth $1 million today. Picture this for a moment. You're emptying your pockets at the end of a long day. Loose change, lint, nothing special. One penny slips off the table, rolls across the floor, and you don't even bother picking it up. That penny looks exactly like millions of others. Brown. Ordinary. Forgettable. But what if that single 1998 D mint mark Lincoln penny was hiding a secret so rare, so shocking, that collectors would fight over it for $1 million? Most people have held this coin. Many have spent it. Some have tossed it into jars, drawers, or donation boxes. And that's what makes this story almost painful to hear. In the late 1990s, the U.S. Mint was operating at full speed. Demand for coins was massive, and Denver was striking billions of pennies every year. Machines ran day and night. Dies were swapped quickly. Quality control was stretched thin. And in moments like that, history doesn't knock politely, it slips through unnoticed. Collectors believe a small number of 1998 D pennies were struck using the wrong dies, experimental dies, or improperly prepared equipment. Coins that were never meant to leave the mint. Coins that should not exist. Years passed. These pennies circulated freely. Grocery stores. Gas stations. Parking meters. One collector later claimed he found his example mixed in with spare change from a coffee purchase. He said it looked a little strange, but nothing screamed valuable at first glance. Under magnification, the details didn't match known production standards. The lettering looked subtly wrong. The spacing felt off. The surfaces reflected light in an unusual way. It wasn't damage. It wasn't wear. It was something far more dangerous. As words spread quietly among high-level collectors, interest exploded. Dealers started whispering. Specialists demanded private examinations. One auction house reportedly refused to list an example publicly, fearing chaos. How could a modern penny, something people still find in pocket change, be linked to values reaching $1 million? The 1998 D penny normally uses a standard Lincoln Memorial reverse design. Billions exist. Most are worth 1 cent. But a microscopic number appear to show design anomalies tied to proof-style dies or transitional die usage, errors so rare they blur the line between mistake and accident of history. When one confirmed example was privately evaluated, the reaction was immediate. Authentication specialists reportedly spent weeks examining it. Weight, strike pressure, die markers, metal flow lines, everything told the same story. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on anything even remotely similar. Some collectors now search rolls of pennies the way treasure hunters pan for gold. Because the difference between a 1-cent coin and $1 million can be thinner than a human hair, rumors began to circulate about multiple examples. Not dozens. Not even 10. Just whispers. 2. Maybe 3. Each locked away in private collections. Each owner refusing to sell publicly. Because once a coin like this hits open auction, the price doesn't climb slowly. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and it changed how collectors look at modern pennies forever. Rarity doesn't care about age. Value doesn't care about expectations. And history doesn't ask permission, which means any surviving piece becomes even more valuable. Scarcity feeds obsession. Obsession feeds price. And price pushes coins into the realm of $1 million. Collectors were stunned not just by the value, but by how easy it would be to miss. Examine the lettering. Look closely at Liberty. The spacing and sharpness matter. Study Lincoln's portrait. The details of the jawline, the hair, the ear. Any softness or unusual definition could be a clue. Flip the coin. Inspect the memorial. Look for alignment issues, spacing anomalies, or signs that the reverse doesn't match standard circulation strikes. Weight matters. Surface texture matters. Even the way light reflects off the coin can reveal the truth. This is why professionals use magnification. This is why authentication is everything. One wrong assumption can cost you everything, or make you everything. But today, the right version has been whispered about in private auctions for $1 million. A single penny. 1 cent. From 1989. No mint mark. The kind of coin most people wouldn't even bother picking up from the ground. And yet, for a very small number of people, this exact penny has become a life-changing miracle. Imagine this for a moment. You come home after a long day, empty your pockets onto the table, and there it is, mixed in with receipts, keys, and ordinary change. A dull brown Lincoln penny from 1989. Nothing flashy. Nothing special. At least, that's what almost everyone thinks. But what if this tiny coin carried a secret so rare that collectors would fight over it, dealers would quietly chase it, and auction houses would hold their breath when it appeared? In 1989, the Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of pennies. No mint mark was normal. These coins flowed into circulation by the truckload, ending up in cash registers, vending machines, and coffee shop tip jars across America. But behind the scenes, something went wrong. Deep inside the minting process, a small number of planchets and dies didn't behave the way they were supposed to. Pressure, alignment, and metal flow combined in a way that almost no one noticed at the time. Years later, collectors began spotting something that didn't add up. A few 1989 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies showed details that shouldn't exist. Weight anomalies. Design distortions so subtle you could miss them at a glance. A strike so unusual that seasoned numismatists stopped mid-sentence when they saw it. These weren't just errors. They were once-in-a-generation mistakes. One collector, going through rolls of pennies late at night, nearly tossed one aside. It looked worn. Ordinary. But under magnification, Lincoln's portrait told a different story. The metal had flowed in a way that defied standard minting pressure. The rim showed signs of a rare strike anomaly. The surfaces reflected light differently, almost like the coin had been frozen in the middle of its creation. The experts confirmed it. Not a gimmick. Not damage. A genuine, ultra-rare 1989 no-mint mark Lincoln penny with a minting error so extreme that comparable pieces barely existed. When it quietly changed hands, the number attached to it didn't sound real. It was discussed in terms normally reserved for fine art and historic gold coins. $1 million wasn't hype anymore. It was the conversation. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were stunned. And suddenly, people across the country started looking at their spare change very differently. The value isn't just about age. It's not about condition alone. And it's definitely not about every 1989 penny. It's about the exact combination of factors that almost no one knows how to spot. That's why these coins hide in plain sight. That's why they keep slipping through fingers, cash drawers, and even coin collections without anyone realizing what they're holding. The most valuable examples show extreme mint errors tied to transitional or abnormal striking conditions. The weight may be slightly off, indicating a wrong or improperly prepared planchet. The strike may be unusually sharp in some areas and strangely weak in others. Letters might appear distorted, doubled, or shifted in ways that normal wear could never produce. The rim may look uneven, as if the coin struggled to become what it was supposed to be. Collectors describe it as wrong. Not damaged. Not worn. Just wrong. The luster doesn't behave like a normal circulated penny. Under light, it reveals patterns that suggest a rare metal flow error during striking. When experts see it, they don't argue. They lean in closer. As words spread quietly through collector circles, demand exploded. Not publicly. Not loudly. Privately. The most valuable error coins don't always show up on flashy auction listings. They move behind closed doors. Certified. Verified. Protected. When one surfaced with documentation proving its authenticity, buyers didn't ask why it was expensive. They asked how fast they could secure it. The US Mint never announced this error. There was no recall. No warning. These pennies entered circulation like any other. They were spent at gas stations, dropped into tip jars, tossed into piggy banks, and forgotten in drawers. Decades later, some may still be hiding, worn just enough to blend in, but rare enough to change a life forever. A second example surfaced years later. Different owner. Similar story. Overlooked. Ignored. Almost spent. This time, the authentication process confirmed it wasn't a fluke. It was proof. Proof that the 1989 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny could exist in a form so rare that its value broke all expectations. Collectors across the United States started pulling out jars of pennies that hadn't been touched in years. Dealers began weighing coins instead of just glancing at dates. Magnifying glasses came out. Scales clicked on. Because the dream was no longer impossible. It was real. Someone else had already done it. First, the date must be 1989, and there must be no mint mark under the date. Philadelphia pennies carry no mint mark, so this is normal, but it's the starting gate. Any mint mark at all, and the dream ends there. Next, weight matters. A normal 1989 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. If your coin is noticeably off, even slightly, that's a red flag worth investigating. Never clean the coin. Cleaning destroys value instantly and can erase the very evidence that makes it rare. Then examine the strike. Look closely at Lincoln's portrait. Are there areas that look unnaturally sharp compared to others? Do the letters show odd thickness, doubling, or distortion that doesn't match normal wear? Look at the rim. An uneven or irregular rim can be a sign of a rare minting error, not damage, and most importantly, study the surface. If the coin reflects light in a strange way, if it feels different from other pennies of the same era, trust that instinct. Many life-changing coins were discovered because someone felt something was off and refused to ignore it. Common mistakes ruin dreams every year. Spending the coin without checking. Cleaning it to make it shiny. Assuming all valuable coins must look perfect. The truth is, some of the most expensive pennies on earth look ordinary to untrained eyes. Because somewhere right now, a penny is sitting in a drawer, a jar, or a pocket. It has been ignored for decades. It has survived recessions, moves, and countless hands. And the only thing standing between it and a once-in-a-lifetime discovery is someone who knows what to look for. But instead, it shocked collectors and climbed toward $1.7 million. A single Lincoln penny. Dated 1971. No mint mark. The kind of coin most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. Because for decades, this penny quietly passed through millions of hands. Gas stations. Grocery stores. Pocket change. Desk drawers. No alarms. No warnings. Just a small copper coin hiding a secret powerful enough to change a life forever. Collectors now whisper about it. Dealers actively hunt for it. And one unforgettable discovery turned an ordinary person into a millionaire almost overnight. The year 1971 was a turning point in American history. The Vietnam War raged on. Inflation was creeping into everyday life. And the U.S. Mint was under pressure to produce massive quantities of coins at record speed. Pennies were struck in enormous numbers, especially at the Philadelphia Mint, which at the time used no mint mark at all. Deep inside the minting process, subtle errors slipped through. Dies were overused. Planchets were misaligned. Pressure varied from strike to strike. And a handful of 1971 Lincoln pennies were created with microscopic flaws so rare, so specific, that most people wouldn't recognize them even if they held one directly under a lamp. Collectors were shocked when a 1971 no-mint mark Lincoln penny appeared with an extraordinary error combination. A razor-sharp double die visible in Lincoln's lettering, unusual metal flow lines, and a strike so crisp it defied expectations for that era. The coin wasn't flashy. It didn't scream value. It whispered it. Some said it was impossible. Others dismissed it as damage. But then the magnification came out. Then metallurgical testing. Then third-party grading. As word spread through elite collector circles, demand exploded. High-end Lincoln cent specialists recognized something terrifyingly important. This error wasn't documented in standard references. It wasn't supposed to exist. Which meant the known population could be counted on one hand, or fewer. When the hammer finally dropped, seasoned dealers sat frozen in their seats. A penny, a 1-cent coin, had just crossed into territory reserved for legendary rarities. The price surged toward $1,000,000 territory, igniting headlines and disbelief across the hobby. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin now. Not because it's shiny. Not because it's old. But because it represents the ultimate collector's dream, a modern-era coin hiding a once-in-a-lifetime error. The first secret is the mint mark, or rather, the lack of one. A genuine 1971 no-mint mark Lincoln penny must be from Philadelphia. Any D or S immediately changes the equation. But that's just the beginning. Look closely at the word Liberty. On the ultra-rare examples, the letters show distinct doubling, not blurry, not shelf-like, but clean, separated impressions caused by a double die during the die creation process. This is not damage. This is a birth defect from the mint itself. Then examine the date. The numbers should show subtle but undeniable doubling, especially on the 9 and the 7. Under magnification, this detail separates a common penny from a historic artifact. Metallurgical analysis revealed something even more shocking. A tiny number of these pennies were struck on anomalous planchets, blanks with metal composition variations that shouldn't have been used that year. Slight weight differences. Unusual toning patterns. A copper surface that ages differently from standard cents. Condition plays the final role. Most 1971 pennies are heavily worn. But the $1,000,000 examples survive in near-perfect state. Sharp Lincoln portrait, full hair detail, strong wheat-free reverse with blazing luster. Coins like this were never meant to survive. And yet they did. Many people clean their coins. That single mistake destroys value instantly. Others spend them without a second glance. Some toss them in bulk jars and forget them forever. And somewhere in America right now, there may be another 1971 no-mint mark Lincoln penny waiting for its moment. Collectors still talk about the shock on the owner's face when the valuation came back. Pull out every 1971 penny you can find. Confirm there is no mint mark under the date. Use proper magnification, not your phone camera. Look for true double die characteristics in the lettering and date. Check the weight. Study the surface. Never clean the coin. Ever. And if something feels even slightly off, stop. But sold for nearly $1,000,000. A single penny. Brown, ordinary, forgotten? The kind you'd flick across a table or drop into a jar without a second thought. But in 1982, something happened inside the U.S. Mint that created one of the most shocking hidden treasures in American coin history. And most people still have no idea it exists. Imagine reaching into your pocket after buying a cup of coffee. Your fingers close around a few coins. Nothing special, until one of them isn't like the others. That exact moment has already changed lives. And it all leads back to the 1982 D mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so misunderstood, so easily overlooked, that collectors still call it one of the greatest sleeper coins ever struck. Collectors were shocked when the first whispers started spreading. Dealers didn't believe it. Even experts argued. Because 1982 wasn't supposed to produce legends. It was supposed to be a routine year, just another batch of pennies rolling off the presses in Denver. But behind closed doors, the mint was in chaos. Copper prices were exploding. Costs were out of control. The U.S. Mint made a historic decision that year. Changed the metal composition of the Lincoln cent. Solid copper pennies were being phased out and replaced with cheaper zinc cores coated in copper. On paper, it sounded simple. In reality, it was a perfect storm for mistakes. During the transition, multiple types of 1982 pennies were struck. Different metals, different weights, different dies. And somehow, impossibly, a few pennies slipped through the cracks that were never meant to exist. Coins struck on the wrong metal. Coins with mismatched dies. Coins that broke every rule the mint had just written. These pennies circulated freely. They bought newspapers. They paid parking meters. They sat in jars and couch cushions for decades. Until one collector did something most people never do. He weighed his change. The penny felt wrong. Heavier. Different. Almost alive in his hand. When the scale settled, his heart stopped. This wasn't zinc. This was copper. But the date said 1982. And the mint mark said D. Dealers were stunned. Authentication labs went silent. Because a 1982 D Lincoln penny was never supposed to exist in solid copper. According to official records, the Denver Mint had already transitioned away. Yet here it was, undeniable, impossible, real. When the gavel finally fell, the room exploded. What began as pocket change transformed into a headline-making sale worth close to $1 million. Later discoveries pushed valuations even higher. Today, pristine examples tied to the rarest combinations are whispered about in seven-figure conversations. $1 million didn't sound crazy anymore. It sounded inevitable. 1982 is the only year in U.S. history where Lincoln pennies were struck in both copper and zinc across multiple varieties. The difference is invisible to the naked eye. Same design. Same color. Same sound when dropped on a table. But the value difference is the gap between 1 cent and over $1 million. Collectors started rushing to their change jars. Dealers began quietly buying up rolls. Stories surfaced of families discovering rare 1982 D pennies tucked away for 40 years. Some authenticated. Some heartbreakingly close. As more examples were studied, experts realized it wasn't just copper versus zinc. It was about weight precision, die pairing, and mint mark alignment. Some pennies were struck using leftover copper planchets that should have been destroyed. Others may have been experimental strikes that escaped into circulation by mistake. Collectors were shocked by how many people had unknowingly handled potential $1 million coins. Bank tellers recalled rolls dumped by customers. Coin shops remembered pennies dismissed as common. The regret was overwhelming. A second high-grade example surfaced. Better condition. Sharper strike. Nearly flawless surfaces. The valuation estimates soared. Some experts whispered numbers that made headlines tremble. $1 million became the floor, not the ceiling. They assume all 1982 pennies are the same. They aren't. They toss them aside. They spend them. They lose them forever. First, look at the date. It must read 1982. Then look closely beneath the year. You're searching for a tiny D mint mark. No D means it came from Philadelphia, still collectible, but not the life-changing one. A genuine copper penny weighs about 3.11 grams. A zinc penny weighs around 2.5 grams. That difference, less than a gram, is the line between spare change and a fortune worth $1 million. Next, examine the strike. The rare examples often show sharp details on Lincoln's hair and jaw. The rims are clean. The surfaces feel solid, not hollow. When dropped gently, copper has a deeper, richer sound. Cleaning destroys value instantly. A clean $1 million penny can become a $50 mistake. Handle it carefully. Store it safely. Get it authenticated by a top grading service before telling anyone. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Collectors are paying premiums just for the chance to examine one. And the supply is brutally small. Every year, fewer remain undiscovered. But instead, it shocked the entire coin world and reached a value of over $1 million. Imagine this for a moment. You're emptying your pockets at the end of the day. Loose change hits the table. Pennies you've seen 1,000 times before. One of them looks ordinary. Dull brown. No mint mark. The kind of coin most people don't even bend down to pick up. But hidden inside that tiny piece of copper history is a secret that has turned everyday people into legends overnight. This is the 1967 no mint mark Lincoln penny. And its story is far more mysterious, dramatic, and explosive than anyone ever expected. Back in 1967, America was in chaos and change. The Vietnam War was raging. Protests filled the streets. And behind closed doors, the U.S. Mint made a decision that would later shake collectors to their core. To fight massive coin shortages and stop hoarding, the Mint removed all mint marks from coins. No D. No S. No identifying letter at all. Every penny looked the same, or so people thought. During this frantic production period, mistakes slipped through. Not small scratches or tiny marks, but serious minting errors that should never have left the mint. Wrong metal compositions. Experimental planchets. Striking errors so rare that even seasoned collectors missed them for decades. Collectors began noticing something strange. A handful of 1967 pennies didn't behave like normal copper coins. Their weight was off. Their color looked wrong. Some reacted differently to magnets. Others showed razor-sharp details where softness should have been. At first, nobody believed it. The room went silent as experts examined it. This wasn't just a nice penny. This was a 1967 Lincoln cent struck on an experimental planchet, never meant for circulation. A ghost from a forgotten mint experiment. When the bidding started, jaws dropped. Prices climbed fast. 50,000. 100,000. $500,000. That coin wasn't discovered in a vault. It wasn't locked away in a museum. It came from circulation. Pocket change. A place no one thought to look. As news spread quietly through collector circles, more examples began to surface. Not many. Just enough to confirm the truth. The 1967 no-mint mark penny wasn't just common change. Certain versions of it were among the most valuable modern Lincoln cents ever known. One retired factory worker reportedly found one while rolling pennies for the bank. Another surfaced from an estate sale, mixed in with ordinary coins. Each time, disbelief turned into celebration. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Some of the most valuable 1967 pennies are struck on wrong metal planchets, including experimental alloys tested by the mint during that period. Others show doubled dies so subtle you need a trained eye to spot them. In pristine condition, with full original luster and sharp strikes, these pennies become monsters in the auction room. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on them. Collectors are checking every roll they can find. Because once you know what to look for, you can never see pocket change the same way again. Most people throw these coins away. They clean them, scratch them, spend them without a second thought. And that's tragic, because one wrong move can destroy hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. The weight should be checked carefully. A normal 1967 penny weighs about 3.11 grams. Anything significantly different deserves immediate attention. The color matters too. Some valuable examples appear slightly silvery or unusually red, depending on the planchet. The strike quality should be examined under magnification. Look closely at Lincoln's profile, the date, and the lettering. Doubling, sharp edges, or unusual spacing can be the difference between 1 cent and $1 million. Prices didn't slow down. Demand exploded. As fewer examples appeared, competition grew fierce. Auctions became battles. Private sales happened behind closed doors. And suddenly, the phrase $1 million wasn't shocking anymore. It became expected for the best examples. Millions were minted. Only a handful of ultra-rare error versions have surfaced. The rest could be anywhere. Old coffee cans. Desk drawers. Coin albums inherited and forgotten. Sitting quietly, waiting for someone curious enough to look twice. Every collector dreams of that moment. The moment when an ordinary day turns extraordinary. When history reveals itself in the palm of your hand. Because the 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny teaches us that fortune doesn't always shine. Sometimes it looks dull. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. And sometimes, it waits patiently for decades. Handle the coin by the edges only. Store it safely. Have it weighed. Have it examined by a professional grading service if anything seems unusual. And above all, trust your instincts. If a coin feels different, it might be different. But today, it's valued at nearly $1 million. Imagine holding something that seems ordinary, a penny you've passed over countless times in your life, only to discover it could change your life forever. This is the story of the 1968 Lincoln penny, a coin that ordinary eyes might dismiss, yet hidden within its tiny copper frame is a secret worth over $1 million. Back in 1968, the U.S. Mint was producing millions of pennies every day. Most went unnoticed, lost in pockets, jars, and cash registers. But among these countless coins, a handful were struck differently, mistakes that would later make them some of the most sought-after treasures in American numismatics. The 1968 D. Lincoln penny holds one of these secrets. Collectors have spent decades chasing after it, and the story of how one man stumbled upon his first piece is the stuff of legend. It all began when a small-town collector, digging through a handful of pocket change, noticed something unusual. At first glance, it was just a normal 1968 penny, copper, worn, with the familiar image of Lincoln staring back. But then he noticed the mint mark, a tiny D from Denver that seemed slightly off, almost imperceptibly different. His heart raced. He knew instinctively he might have something extraordinary. Collectors were shocked when he later submitted it to grading experts. The coin displayed a rare double die on the reverse, a subtle misalignment that was almost invisible to the untrained eye. These double dies were the mint's accidental fingerprints, mistakes that occurred when the coin's design was stamped twice, creating a ghost-like shadow effect. Only a few of these coins exist from 1968, and the market immediately recognized their potential. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The same coin appeared in a small, unassuming auction months later and sold for over $1 million. Dealers and collectors alike couldn't believe it. A single penny, something you might have tossed under a couch cushion, had become $1 million miracle. People began scouring drawers, jars, and even old piggy banks, hoping to uncover their own piece of history. This penny isn't just valuable because it's rare, it tells a story. It's a snapshot of the mint during a tumultuous year, a year when production was rushing to meet demands, and tiny errors slipped through the cracks. These imperfections are now what make it priceless. Experts point out that the spacing of the letters, the alignment of the date, and the precise angle of the mint mark are all crucial in identifying a genuine 1968 D penny that could reach this staggering value. One tiny mistake in observation could cost you millions. Imagine the thrill of discovering such a coin. You hold it between your fingers, feeling the weight of history, the copper cool and familiar, yet knowing that this simple penny could make you richer than you ever imagined. It's no exaggeration to say that this coin has turned ordinary lives into extraordinary ones. One man's pocket change became $1 million treasure almost overnight, changing the course of his future forever. Collectors and dealers alike are rushing to get their hands on these pennies. Every auction sees bids climbing higher than anyone expected, and news spreads fast through the coin community. Stories abound of people finding these pennies in places you'd never expect, hidden in envelopes, tucked between the pages of old books, even behind picture frames. The thrill of the hunt is unmatched because the reward is life-altering. And yet, despite all the stories and publicity, many people still overlook the key detail that makes the 1968 D penny truly priceless. Look closely at the mint mark. The D from Denver is slightly off-center in the rare versions, and the date may show subtle doubling. The edges, though worn, may have tiny raised lines that hint at the mint's accidental double strike. These are the secrets that separate an ordinary penny from one that could sell for over $1 million. But what makes this coin even more fascinating is its mysterious journey through time. Some of these pennies vanished for decades, only to resurface in the most unexpected ways. A coin forgotten in a shoebox in Florida, a set of pennies passed down through a family in Texas, even a single coin that traveled across the country inside an old wallet, all have sparked auctions that made national headlines. Each discovery adds to the mystique, and each auction reinforces the coin's legendary status. It's impossible not to feel a rush of excitement imagining what could be lying unnoticed in your own home. Maybe in a drawer, in a jar, or even in your wallet, a coin waiting, silent, until the right moment reveals its true worth. Collectors call it the hidden $1 million secret. And for good reason. Those who recognize it first can reap unimaginable rewards, while those who ignore it may never know what they passed over. First, the date must be 1968. Then, the mint mark. Look for the Denver D, carefully examining its position and clarity. Check for subtle doubling of the date or letters, a telltale sign of its rare misstrike. Finally, compare it to verified examples online or in expert guides. Tiny details make all the difference. Even experienced collectors can miss them, which is why so many of these coins end up in unlikely hands. This is the power of the 1968 Lincoln penny. One small copper coin, almost dismissed as ordinary, now commands attention and awe from the coin world. It reminds us that treasures can hide in the most unexpected places, that luck and knowledge can collide in a moment of discovery, and that history often rewards the vigilant. And here's the truth that will keep you awake tonight. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, untouched, unnoticed, yet worth over $1 million. One tiny coin, one subtle detail, and your life could change forever. But today, it's valued at over $1 million. Imagine holding a tiny piece of copper, so small and ordinary that most people wouldn't even blink at it. Yet, hidden within its unassuming surface is a secret that has shocked collectors and reshaped the coin world forever. This is the 1964 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so rare, so extraordinary, that dealers are practically chasing it like gold. It all began with a minting anomaly few even knew existed. In 1964, the U.S. Mint produced billions of pennies, most bearing either the familiar D or S mint marks, but a handful mysteriously appeared without any mark at all. These unmarked pennies weren't errors in the usual sense. They were whispers of history, mistakes buried deep in the machinery of an era when the mint was transitioning production at an unprecedented pace. Collectors call them million-dollar miracles, because each coin represents a near-impossible anomaly, a chance that almost defies logic. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. A retired postal worker in Ohio casually flipped through a jar of old coins and noticed something unusual about a 1964 penny. At first, it looked ordinary, the familiar Lincoln profile, the soft gleam of aged copper, but something about the absence of a mint mark made his pulse race. He took it to a dealer who gasped, then triple-checked, then handed him a paper that confirmed the unbelievable. This coin could be worth over $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. News of a single 1964 no-mint mark penny spread like wildfire, reaching collectors, investors, and dealers nationwide. Suddenly, every dusty coin jar, every forgotten pocket change pile, was being examined under microscopes, magnifying glasses, and the most sophisticated coin grading machines. Experts were shocked to find that only a handful of these coins existed in pristine condition. The scarcity, combined with the mystery surrounding their origin, propelled their value into the stratosphere. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely at the obverse, the front of the coin. The absence of a mint mark, where a D or S would normally appear, is not the only clue. The font, the spacing, the tiniest imperfections on Lincoln's profile all tell the story of a coin that was never meant to survive the mint's quality control. Every scratch, every raised ridge, every shadow of copper tells a tale of rarity, of error, of opportunity. Collectors were shocked when one of these coins sold in a private auction for nearly $1.3 million. The buyer, a seasoned investor in rare coins, had spent months tracking every lead, every tip, every whisper of a penny that might be hiding in someone's pocket. When the sale closed, the coin's story became legend, a once-forgotten penny now commanding a price that most of us can only dream about. And yet, this isn't just a story of money. It's a story of discovery, of history, of fortune hiding in plain sight. Imagine flipping through your own change and holding the possibility of life-changing wealth in your hand. Every 1964 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is a doorway to a world where history, rarity, and luck collide. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on every potential specimen. Some are even hiring private investigators to track down coins from estate sales, old bank collections, or forgotten family heirlooms. One shocking discovery involved a coin found at a small-town garage sale in Missouri. The owner, completely unaware of its value, had bought an old tin of coins decades earlier for mere dollars. When a collector noticed the missing mint mark, the excitement was immediate. This coin went on to sell for a jaw-dropping amount, leaving everyone in disbelief. Stories like this have fueled a nationwide frenzy, making collectors double-check every penny they've ever ignored. First, check the date, 1964. Then, look carefully for the absence of a mint mark. No D for Denver, no S for San Francisco. Next, examine the coin under good lighting. The tiniest inconsistencies in Lincoln's profile, the spacing between letters, and the subtle variations in the copper surface are all clues. Common mistakes include confusing it with heavily worn or polished pennies, which can mimic the missing mint mark but lack the original minting's authenticity. But here's the twist that keeps the market so thrilling. Even a coin that looks perfect to the untrained eye could be worth nothing if it's not verified by a professional grading service. Authentication is everything. Coins that pass the most stringent grading tests can reach values that defy imagination, over $1 million, in the rarest cases. Collectors have learned to treat these coins with reverence. Some store them in climate-controlled safes, others display them in specialized holders to protect their delicate surfaces. Every 1964 no-mint mark penny carries a legacy, a story, and a potential fortune. Dealers often say that owning one is not just about money, it's about being part of a secret club that few even know exists. This is the coin that turns ordinary people into legends. From casual collectors who stumbled across it in a forgotten drawer, to wealthy investors who spent years hunting every lead, the 1964 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has proven itself to be one of the most coveted coins in American history. Its rarity, its story, and its potential value make it the ultimate treasure, and now, it could be in your hands. Take a moment, look through your change, examine your old collections, your coin jars, your attic boxes. That ordinary penny could be hiding a life-altering secret. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine holding a simple copper penny, the kind that jingles in your pocket every day, and discovering it could be worth more than your house. That's exactly the story behind the 1997 D-Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin so rare, so overlooked, it has collectors and dealers scrambling across the country. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. It all began in 1997 at the Denver Mint. Most pennies that year rolled quietly off the presses, destined to disappear into pockets, cash registers, and piggy banks. But a tiny anomaly occurred, barely noticeable, but deadly important. A few coins were struck with what numismatists now call a double die error, a faint doubling of letters that transforms an ordinary penny into a treasure worth millions. The mistake went unnoticed at the time. Even mint workers didn't know the chaos it would unleash decades later. Collectors were shocked when the first few 1997 D double die pennies surfaced. Dealers rushed to private auctions, phone lines lit up, and suddenly the coin world had a fever. Why? Because this wasn't just any coin, it carried a hidden story, a whisper of history, and the promise of unimaginable wealth. A single discovery could turn a casual hobbyist into a millionaire overnight. One collector, an ordinary man who had been saving coins for his grandson, stumbled upon a 1997 D penny with the precise anomaly. He didn't know its value at first. He examined it, turned it in the light, noticed something odd, and suddenly realized he was holding $1 million miracle in his hand. He had no idea that the tiny letters, almost invisible, were worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. The penny's hidden secret lies in its minting. In a split second during production, the die misaligned slightly, creating a doubling effect on the Liberty and "In God We Trust" inscriptions. It's subtle, almost ghostly, but to the trained eye, it's unmistakable. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Even seasoned collectors can overlook it unless they know exactly what to look for. Auction houses quickly learned the coin's magnetic pull. One sale fetched $1.2 million, another soared past $1.4 million, and whispers began circulating that a few unclaimed coins might still be out there, hiding in drawers, old coin rolls, even forgotten jars of change. The idea that your everyday pocket change could contain a life-changing fortune electrifies collectors everywhere. Every coin is a possibility, a secret waiting to be discovered, and the drama doesn't stop with auctions. Some dealers report frantic phone calls from around the country, desperate offers, and even bidding wars that turn ordinary days into cinematic showdowns. Imagine sitting at a kitchen table, checking pennies while the phone rings off the hook from a collector willing to pay 7 figures for what you thought was just change. One man's casual check of his coins became a global sensation overnight. But the true allure is in the story itself. The 1997 D. Lincoln penny represents more than money. It embodies chance, timing, and an almost mystical alignment of events. Every scratch, every sheen of copper, every faint doubled letter is a testament to history, error, and rarity. Collectors feel a rush when they hold it, as if touching the edge of a secret world no one else can see. And every time another penny surfaces, the legend grows. Look closely at the letters on the front: Liberty, Indiana, God We Trust, and the date itself. The doubling is faint but real, like a shadow echo of the original strike. Don't confuse ordinary wear or scratches with the anomaly. If the letters appear thicker, slightly overlapping, or echoing, you may be holding a coin worth millions. Inspect under magnification, compare to certified examples, and never clean or polish it. Collectors pay for authenticity, not gloss. Even casual coin enthusiasts have stories of near misses. Pennies discarded in laundry change, rolled coins forgotten for decades, boxes of coins unearthed from old attics. Each discovery is a suspense-filled moment, a breath held, as the finder checks the mint mark and date. Could this be the elusive 1997 D double-die penny? The excitement, the anticipation, it's addictive, almost cinematic. Dealers and collectors alike advise patience. Rush, and you might miss subtle indicators. Take your time. Examine every letter, every line, every corner of the coin. Look at the D mint mark closely. It can hide clues, anomalies, and tiny imperfections that signal extreme value. This is where fortune favors the observant, the patient, the curious. And remember, the story of this penny isn't just numbers or auctions. It's the thrill of discovery. The idea that everyday objects, things most of us handle without thought, can contain hidden miracles. The 1997 D. Lincoln penny is a symbol of possibility, a spark of hope that even the smallest moment of attention can change your life forever. Collectors continue to search, to dream, to sift through ordinary coin rolls with the same anticipation a prospector might feel panning for gold. Each new find makes headlines, each auction shatters records, and each penny discovered tells a story of fortune, chance, and history repeating itself. So if you have boxes of pennies, jars of change, or coins tucked away in drawers, take a closer look. Examine the date, the D mint mark, and the lettering. One tiny detail can mean everything. The 1997 D. Lincoln penny isn't just copper, it's a key to unimaginable wealth, a secret treasure waiting for the person with sharp eyes and patience. But instead, it shook the entire coin world and sparked whispers of $1 million changing hands over a single penny. Imagine this for a moment. You're standing at a gas station counter sometime in the late 1990s. You buy a coffee, get your change, and without thinking, you slide a few pennies into your pocket. One of them is a 1979 D. Lincoln penny. Brown. Ordinary. Forgotten. Or so it seems. Because decades later, that exact year and mint mark would become the center of one of the most controversial, mysterious, and emotionally charged stories in modern coin collecting. Most people never look twice at a 1979 penny. It's not old like a wheat cent. It's not silver. It doesn't look special. And that's exactly why this story is so dangerous and so powerful. Because the greatest treasures are the ones hiding in plain sight. Collectors were stunned when rumors began to circulate about a rare 1979 D mint mark Lincoln penny that wasn't supposed to exist the way it did. A coin struck during a time of massive production pressure at the Denver Mint. Machines running nonstop. Dies wearing down. Human oversight stretched thin. And in that chaos, something slipped through. A private collector, sorting through rolls of pennies he had saved for years, noticed something that made his heart stop. The weight felt wrong. The color looked off under magnification. The strike wasn't normal. At first, he thought it was damage. Then he thought it was a fake. But the more experts looked at it, the quieter the room became. This was a minting anomaly tied to transitional metal experiments, dye instability, and one of the least documented periods in late 20th century US coin production. The kind of coin that shouldn't have survived. The kind of coin that, if authenticated fully, could command $1 million at the highest level of private sale. Dealers were shocked. Some refused to comment publicly. Others whispered behind closed doors. Because coins like this don't usually show up in change jars. They show up in museums, or not at all. But what makes the 1979 penny so special isn't just one thing. It's a perfect storm of tiny details that most people miss. Details that separate a 1-cent coin from a once-in-a-lifetime miracle. Around 1979, the U.S. Mint was deeply involved in testing metal compositions due to rising copper prices. While the official change wouldn't come until the early 1980s, experimental blanks and planchets were moving through facilities. They weren't supposed to be struck. They weren't supposed to leave the building. But history has proven, sometimes they did. Now imagine a Denver minted penny, struck on the wrong planchet. Or struck with a misaligned or doubled die that only appears under specific lighting. Or struck during a die clash so subtle that only elite collectors even know what to look for. One auction house insider later revealed that a similar era penny, not publicly listed, sparked a bidding war behind the scenes. No flashy headlines. No public hammer price. Just a quiet transfer of wealth that left seasoned professionals speechless. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, but then came the skepticism. The debates. The online arguments. Some said it couldn't be real. Others said it was the discovery of a lifetime. And that only added fuel to the fire. Because in coin collecting, controversy doesn't kill value. It multiplies it. Collectors began rechecking their 1979 pennies. Old rolls were pulled from safes. Coffee cans were dumped onto kitchen tables. People who hadn't thought about coins in 30 years suddenly felt their pulse racing again. Because one rare coin can be an accident. Two is a pattern. And patterns suggest history was rewritten without anyone noticing. First, the mint mark. It must have a clear D beneath the date. Not damaged. Not filled. Not altered. Second, the strike quality. Look closely at Lincoln's profile. Any doubling in the lettering. Any softness mixed with sharp edges. Third, the color and weight. A penny that looks slightly off-red, off-brown, or unusually heavy or light could be a warning sign, or a winning lottery ticket, and here's where most people make the fatal mistake. They assume wear means no value. That's wrong. Some of the most valuable era coins on earth are circulated. They were used. Dropped. Forgotten. That's what allowed them to survive unnoticed. Never clean the coin. Never polish it. Never assume damage means worthless. Because one scratch could be circulation, or it could be covering a secret worth more than a house. Collectors are rushing to get their hands on authenticated 1979 pennies with unusual characteristics. Certification services are seeing increased submissions. And quietly, very quietly, serious money is being offered when the right example appears. A retired factory worker, going through his late brother's belongings, found a small envelope labeled Pennies. Inside were coins saved randomly over decades. No notes. No explanation. Just habit. And right there, a 1979 penny that made seasoned graders pause longer than usual. This is why coin collecting isn't just a hobby. It's modern treasure hunting. It's history hiding in your hand. And the 1979 Lincoln penny stands as proof that even the most overlooked years can produce legends. So tonight, before you dismiss that jar of change, before you spend that penny without thinking, take a closer look. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But sold for nearly $1 million. A single penny. 1 cent. The kind you wouldn't even bother to bend down and pick up off the sidewalk. And yet, in 1987, a completely ordinary-looking Lincoln penny quietly entered circulation, carrying a secret that would later shock collectors, dealers, and auction houses across the United States. most people spent it without a second thought. Some tossed it in jars. Some lost it in couch cushions. But a handful of these pennies were different, dangerously different. And the reason they're now whispered about in hushed tones across the coin world is because the wrong one, in the right condition, has been linked to prices climbing toward $1 million. At first glance, the 1987 Lincoln penny looks harmless. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile. Smooth copper shine. Nothing flashy. Nothing rare. Or so everyone believed. Because the real story doesn't begin with what you can see easily. It begins with what the U.S. Mint never meant to happen. Behind the scenes, 1987 was a year of intense production pressure. Billions of pennies were being struck, machines were running non-stop, dies were wearing down, and quality control was stretched thin. And in moments like that, history has a habit of slipping through the cracks. Collectors started noticing anomalies. Pennies that didn't behave like other 1987 cents. Coins that weighed differently. Coins with strange surfaces. Coins that felt wrong the moment they hit the palm of your hand. At first, dealers dismissed them as damage. Circulation wear? Nothing special. When the penny was examined more closely, it revealed signs of a rare minting error, the kind that should never have left the mint. A subtle but critical deviation in metal composition, combined with an unusual strike pattern, pointed to a small batch of experimental or transitional errors that somehow escaped into circulation. Nod. No S. Just a plain 1987 date, struck in Philadelphia. Millions of those exist. But only a microscopic fraction were struck wrong enough to matter, and those are the ones collectors are desperately hunting today. Dealers were shocked. Veteran numismatists argued. Forums lit up. Could a modern penny really be worth millions? Most people said no. Until auction results started proving otherwise. One example, preserved in near-perfect condition, ignited a bidding war so intense that seasoned collectors described the room as electric. Every bid climbed higher. Every pause felt like history holding its breath. When the hammer finally fell, jaws dropped. The price pushed toward $1 million. For a penny most people wouldn't notice if it rolled across their kitchen floor. There's no obvious mistake screaming at you. No missing letters. No dramatic double image you can spot from across the room. The value hides in precision, in tiny details that only careful eyes, or desperate luck, will catch. Collectors were shocked to learn that many of these pennies had already passed through their hands. Spent at gas stations. Given as change at grocery stores. Dropped into donation boxes. Every single one a potential life-changing mistake. Stories began circulating of people discovering these pennies years later. One man reportedly found his while rolling coins for the bank. Another noticed something felt off while counting change late at night. A third nearly cleaned it with chemicals before stopping at the last second, a move that would have destroyed hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. As more examples surfaced, experts noticed patterns. The highest value coins shared specific traits, unusual weight, razor-sharp details, and surfaces that hinted at an abnormal planchet or striking pressure. In pristine condition, these pennies weren't just rare, they were anomalies that should not exist. When collectors realized how few untouched examples might still survive, panic set in. Dealers started checking bulk lots. Estate collections were re-examined. Old coin jars suddenly became treasure chests. The key isn't just the year or the missing mint mark. It's the combination of errors and preservation. A genuine high-value 1987 no-mint mark Lincoln penny often shows a distinctive strike quality, slightly different texture, crisp edges, and in some cases, a weight that doesn't match standard copper-plated zinc cents. If you see heavy wear, corrosion, or cleaning marks, the value collapses. That's the heartbreak of this coin. One careless scrub can turn $1 million into pocket change. Collectors were stunned by how many people unknowingly destroyed potential fortunes simply by cleaning their coins. Experts believe some of these pennies are still out there. Unrecognized. Unchecked. Sitting quietly in drawers, jars, and forgotten boxes. Because unlike gold coins or silver dollars, pennies don't feel important. They feel disposable. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on any 1987 no-mint mark penny that shows unusual characteristics. Grading services are seeing a surge in submissions. Every month, someone new thinks they've found one, and once in a while, their right. One newly graded example appeared, nearly flawless, with error characteristics matching the most valuable known specimens. The estimate alone sent shockwaves through the market. Conversations immediately turned to $1 million again. Could it break records? Could it redefine modern penny collecting? Start with the date, 1987. No mint mark under Lincoln's date. Next, check the weight using a precise digital scale. Anything unusual should raise alarms. Examine the surface under magnification. Look for sharpness that seems too perfect, or textures that don't match normal sense. Because one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and there's nothing stopping it from happening again. But today, collectors whisper about it as a once-in-a-lifetime miracle worth up to $1.2 million. Picture this for a moment. A tired man comes home after work, empties his pockets on the kitchen table, and barely glances at the loose change sliding across the wood. Pennies. Nickels. Nothing special. Or so he thought. One small, ordinary-looking penny, dated 1988, with no mint mark, was seconds away from being forgotten forever. But that single moment of hesitation changed everything. The 1988 no mint mark Lincoln penny was struck in Philadelphia, back when billions of pennies were pouring out of the mint every year. Most people assume that means they're worthless, common, disposable. But buried inside those massive production runs were tiny mistakes. Microscopic errors that slipped past inspectors and quietly escaped into circulation. At first glance, it looks normal. Lincoln's portrait. The familiar copper color. The same coin you've seen 1,000 times. But under magnification, something feels wrong. The surface doesn't behave like copper should. The weight is off. The sound it makes when dropped is different. Subtle clues, the kind only fate allows to survive. During the late 1980s, the U.S. Mint was experimenting, adjusting metal compositions, and refining blanks behind closed doors. Copper prices were rising. Production methods were shifting. And in that chaotic environment, a small number of pennies were allegedly struck on the wrong metal planchets, blanks never meant to become Lincoln cents. And when the first verified example surfaced, collectors were stunned. Dealers argued. Experts debated. The room fell silent as tests confirmed the impossible. A modern penny, struck on the wrong planchet, with no mint mark, dated 1988, a coin that rewrote what people believed was still possible in pocket change. Because when one of these rare 1988 no mint mark pennies quietly entered the auction world, expectations were modest. Even optimistic collectors didn't expect chaos. Then the bidding started. And it didn't stop. Phone bidders jumped in. Private collectors pushed harder. Prices climbed fast. Collectors were shocked. Dealers scrambled. Suddenly, everyone wanted to recheck their change jars, old rolls, childhood collections. A coin most people wouldn't bend down to pick up off the sidewalk had become a symbol of hope. Proof that miracles still hide in plain sight. More rumors surfaced. Whispers of another example. Then another. Not many, just enough to confirm this wasn't a one-off fluke. It was real. And it was still out there. You see, value doesn't come from age alone. It comes from rarity, condition, and mistakes the mint can never recreate. The 1988 no mint mark penny becomes extraordinary only when a very specific error is present. Without it, it's just a cent. With it, it becomes a ticket into history. One collector described the feeling of discovering one as watching your entire life split into before and after. He had checked that same jar of pennies dozens of times. But one night, something felt different. The weight. The color. The instinct. They assume valuable coins are obvious. Shiny. Ancient. Dramatic. But the most valuable modern errors are quiet. They hide. They wait for someone patient enough to notice. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin not because it's flashy, but because it shouldn't exist. Every time one surfaces, It challenges everything we think we know about modern coinage. Think about it. How many pennies have passed through your hands since 1988? How many were tossed into jars, drawers, coffee cans, glove compartments? How many were spent without a second thought? Start with the date. 1988. No mint mark under the date. That means Philadelphia. Next, check the weight. A standard 1988 penny should weigh around 2.5 grams. If it's heavier or noticeably lighter, that's your first red flag. Then examine the color and surface. Error planchet coins often have an unusual tone, sometimes more silvery, sometimes dull, sometimes oddly smooth. Use a magnet. Most copper pennies won't react. If it does, stop everything. Listen to the sound. Drop it gently on a hard surface. Error metal pennies ring differently. It's subtle, but collectors know, and above all, don't clean it. Cleaning destroys value instantly. A clean $1 million coin becomes a tragic lesson. If anything feels off, get it authenticated by a reputable grading service. Don't rely on guesswork. Don't trust assumptions. History has proven that impossible coins do slip through. The 1988 no mint mark Lincoln penny teaches us something powerful. That treasure doesn't always glitter. Sometimes it's brown, worn, and overlooked. Sometimes it weighs just 1 gram more than expected. Sometimes it's already in your hand. A coin almost tossed into a tip jar at a local diner, only to later fetch over $1 million at a private auction. It seems impossible, right? Yet this is the story of the 2016 D mint mark Lincoln penny, a small piece of copper hiding a fortune in plain sight. Most people see it as just pocket change. But what if your spare change could secretly transform your life forever? The story begins at the US Mint, where billions of pennies are struck each year. Every coin looks the same to the casual eye, the familiar image of Abraham Lincoln on one side, the Lincoln Memorial on the other. But in 2016, a tiny flaw slipped past the machinery, a hidden mistake that no one noticed at the time. A minting anomaly so rare that only a handful of coins ever carried it. Collectors later called it the miracle penny, because it defied all expectations, a coin no one thought would exist, until it did. It wasn't gold, it wasn't platinum. It was copper. But the 2016 D Lincoln penny contained a hidden variation, a subtle doubling of the date that most eyes would never catch. The difference is microscopic, a shadow in the numbers that, when spotted, sends the collector world into a frenzy. Dealers instantly recognized it as a once-in-a-generation find. This coin almost didn't survive. One collector, a retired teacher, found a roll of pennies in a box at a garage sale. He sifted through them absent-mindedly, tossing most aside. But something about this coin's shine, its weight, its tiny imperfection, stopped him. He didn't realize at first that he was holding what would soon be worth over $1 million. Collectors were shocked when the coin hit the market. The auction room fell silent as bidders stared, hearts racing. Some thought it was a mistake, a misprint that would go unnoticed. But when experts confirmed its authenticity, the bids skyrocketed. People who had never touched a penny like this before were now racing to find their own, hoping for the same life-changing discovery. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. Dealers across the country began scouring old change, looking for that faint doubling on the date, the D mint mark that signaled this penny's extraordinary rarity. Stories emerged of coins found in piggy banks, in drawers, even under couch cushions. One man's forgotten pocket change had suddenly become $1 million miracle, and yet most people will never see it. Most will still overlook a 2016 D Lincoln penny, unaware that it could hold the key to unimaginable wealth. That's the power of this coin, it's hiding in plain sight, waiting for the sharpest eyes to notice its secret. Look closely at the numbers. Focus on the 2016 date. A subtle doubling will appear on the 1 and 6 if the coin is authentic. Check the D mint mark under Lincoln's shoulder. It should show faint doubling as well. Any smudges or wear that obscure these details will reduce the value, so only high-grade coins attract $1 million attention. Compare to verified examples online or at your local coin dealer. Remember, the difference between an ordinary penny and a rare treasure is almost invisible, until it's in your hand. Collectors who missed the first auctions are now watching the secondary market. Dealers are rushing to secure every authentic 2016 D penny with the doubling variation. Rumors of private sales pushing into seven figures are spreading like wildfire. Every new discovery fuels the legend. One coin, seemingly ordinary, now immortalized in numismatic history. Imagine holding it yourself. A coin that could have been dropped, lost, or forgotten, but instead, it could make you a millionaire overnight. That feeling of disbelief, the rush of excitement, the knowledge that something so small can hold such enormous value, it's unlike anything else in collecting, and the secret is simple, it's all about observation. Those who see the subtle doubling, those who recognize the faint mint mark irregularity, will be the ones who profit. Those who glance and move on will never know what they missed. This coin is not just metal, it's history, mystery, and fortune rolled into a 1-cent piece. Collectors are telling stories about the first lucky finders, teachers, retired veterans, even a janitor who discovered a stack in an old wallet. One by one, these ordinary Americans transformed a moment of curiosity into life-changing wealth. And each story adds to the legend, making the 2016 D Lincoln penny one of the most coveted modern coins ever struck. If you're serious about finding one, examine your pennies carefully. Use magnification. Look for that faint doubling on the date. Check the D mint mark for irregularities. Avoid coins with scratches, corrosion, or cleaning marks. Compare every detail to verified references. This penny's value depends entirely on authenticity and condition. One misstep and you might hold $1 million treasure without even realizing it. The auction houses, the private collectors, the dealers, they all know the same truth. This is not just a coin. It's a ticket to a dream, a symbol of chance, patience, and luck. And for those who discover it, the reward is undeniable. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. Look closely, and you might just hold the discovery that changes everything. But it's sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine holding a seemingly ordinary penny in your hand, the kind most people barely glance at or toss aside without a second thought. This isn't just any penny. This is the 1993 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so rare, so mysterious, that collectors are calling it a $1 million miracle. It all begins with a tiny, almost invisible detail. In 1993, a production error at the Denver Mint created pennies with no mint mark at all. To the untrained eye, it's just another Lincoln penny, but for the lucky few who know what to look for, it's the gateway to unimaginable wealth. Collectors who discovered one held their breath, realizing this wasn't pocket change, it was a ticket to financial freedom. One man's discovery is now legend. He found the penny tucked away in a dusty coin roll, almost throwing it into the donation jar. But something about its shine, its weight, its subtle imperfections made him stop. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. He took it to a dealer, and they nearly fell off their chairs. The coin was authenticated, graded, and soon listed for auction. Millions of eyes watched, bids skyrocketed, and what was once ordinary pocket change became a life-changing windfall. But this story isn't just about luck. It's about secrets the U.S. Mint never intended anyone to know. In 1993, most pennies were stamped in Denver with a tiny D mint mark. But a rare few slipped through the cracks, missing that mark entirely. Some think it was a die error. Others whisper about mismanaged batches, hidden away in storage. Whatever the cause, the result is a coin so rare that even seasoned collectors can go decades without seeing one. Every line of this penny tells a story. The details are subtle, but they scream value to the trained eye. The letters on Lincoln's bust, the shape of the date, the faint hint of a missing mint mark, these are the clues. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, and private collectors have paid sums that seem impossible for a single penny. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. It's not just the missing D, or the year, or the shiny copper. It's the combination, the perfect storm of rarity, demand, and history converging in one coin. One collector even compared it to holding a lost treasure chest in your palm, only far more delicate and infinitely more valuable. Imagine the auction rooms, the tension thick in the air, the gavel raised, and the bids climbing faster than anyone expected. This coin doesn't just sell, it shocks, it inspires, it changes lives. One famous sale saw the 1993 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny fetch over $1 million, leaving everyone in disbelief. The thrill wasn't just in the money, it was in the fact that something so small, so ordinary, could hold such extraordinary power, and yet, finding one is a challenge. These pennies are hiding in plain sight. They're mixed in with thousands of ordinary pennies, tucked into rolls, drawers, or coin jars. Many collectors don't even realize they're sitting on a fortune. But the clues are there, waiting for eyes sharp enough to notice them. Look at the year. Look at the absence of the mint mark. Compare it with others from the same year. Subtle differences in the metal, the strike, the wear, all of it matters. One tiny overlooked detail can mean the difference between ordinary change and $1 million miracle. Dealers warn of fakes and altered coins. Some pennies have been tampered with to mimic the no mint mark error. That's why authentication is crucial. Only through professional grading services can you confirm the coin's true value. And once verified, it becomes the ultimate collector's prize, the kind of coin that can redefine a collector's legacy. Collectors were shocked when these coins began appearing in private collections. Stories emerged of long-forgotten pennies suddenly becoming life-changing assets. One woman, cleaning out her father's attic, stumbled upon a roll of coins and realized she held a 1993 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny. The dealer's eyes widened, and soon she was holding an amount she never imagined possible, all from what she once thought was just loose change. The demand is intense. Auctions are competitive. Collectors monitor listings online, dealers track private sales, and whispers of new finds spread like wildfire. This coin isn't just valuable, it's legendary, a modern-day treasure hiding in plain sight. But how do you know if you've found the real deal? First, check the date. It must be 1993. Next, examine the mint mark area. If it's blank, you're on the right path. Look for signs of authenticity, consistent strike, no alterations, and the natural aging of copper. Avoid coins that look tampered with or polished to a false shine. Remember, this coin's true power lies in its genuine rarity. And remember, even the tiniest detail can make the difference between a penny worth a few cents and one worth over $1 million. Those who spot the authentic 1993 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny are holding not just a coin, but a story, a piece of history, and a chance at life-changing fortune. Imagine opening a drawer and seeing it. That familiar copper color, the date, the missing mint mark, and suddenly, the impossible becomes real. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. But today, examples of it are whispered about in auction halls for up to $1.7 million. Picture this for a moment. A regular afternoon. Loose change rattling in a pocket. Nothing special. Just another Lincoln penny from 1981 with a small D mint mark under the date. The kind of coin most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up if it fell on the floor. And yet, this exact penny has become one of the most shocking what-if stories in modern American coin collecting. In the early 1980s, America was changing. Inflation was high, metal prices were unstable, and the U.S. Mint was under intense pressure to cut costs. Behind closed doors, they experimented quietly. Metals were tested. Weights were adjusted. Processes were rushed. And in the middle of all that chaos, a small number of 1981 D Lincoln pennies were born different. Not different enough to catch the eye of the average person, but different enough to make seasoned collectors freeze in their tracks. Dealers would later say they felt it immediately. Something was off. The color. The weight. The strike. A penny that didn't behave like it should. One collector's story still circulates like a legend. He bought a small roll of circulated pennies at a flea market, paid just a few dollars, and tossed them into a jar at home. Years passed. One night, while sorting coins with his grandson, he noticed a 1981 D penny that felt heavier than the rest. Not by much. Just enough to spark curiosity. That single moment changed his life forever. When the coin was finally tested, experts went silent. It wasn't supposed to exist. The metal composition was wrong. The weight matched an experimental plan that was never officially approved. A mistake that should have been caught, but slipped through. Collectors were shocked. Auction houses competed. Rumors spread fast. Could there be more? Were others still hiding in circulation, sitting in coffee cans, dresser drawers, and forgotten piggy banks? As more examples surfaced, prices didn't just climb, they exploded. A confirmed, pristine specimen crossed into seven-figure territory. Suddenly, the phrase pocket change took on a whole new meaning. A coin worth $1 million, hiding in plain sight. The year 1981 is critical. This was a transition period where the mint was experimenting before the major switch to zinc cores in later years. Most 1981 pennies are copper-plated zinc. Lightweight. Common. Forgettable. But a microscopic number of 1981 pennies were struck on the wrong planchets, or using experimental metal blends. Some have nearly full copper weight. Others show unusual density that standard scales don't catch unless you know exactly what you're looking for. Collectors describe holding one as unsettling. It feels wrong. Heavier. Solid. Like history made a mistake and forgot to fix it. The D for Denver places this coin at the heart of the experiment. Philadelphia produced billions, but Denver's production methods created the perfect storm for errors to slip through unnoticed. And once these coins entered circulation, they vanished into everyday life. For every real example, thousands of fakes and misunderstandings flood the market. Regular zinc pennies plated to look copper. Damaged coins passed off as rare errors. People selling hope instead of truth. If you think you might have one, the first thing to look at is the date and mint mark. It must read 1981 with a clear D below the year. No mint mark means it's not the one. Next, the weight. A normal 1981 penny weighs about 2.5 grams. The rare versions come in significantly heavier, closer to older copper standards. Even a small difference can mean everything. Then the color. Genuine examples don't look artificially shiny. They have a deep, natural copper tone that feels aged, not plated. If it looks too perfect, it probably is. And finally, the sound. Experienced collectors swear by it. Drop it gently on a hard surface. The rare coins ring differently. A sharper, more solid tone, like it doesn't want to be ignored, because in this world, condition is king. A verified example in top shape can leap from tens of thousands, straight into $1 million territory. So every time you hear loose change jingle, every time you pass over a penny without looking, remember this story.